So our workshop is going to start. So you could still have your lunch. We'll start soon, and you could, when you're having your lunch, you could check the slides, and we'll start slowly to cover what we're currently doing. And after after our introduction, you could start, just like work with us and like give us your ideas and questions.
Hi.
So, sorry, our workshop is starting, so could you please pay attention here? Okay, not right there. So, sorry, this is not a very ideal situation. We're in a very big room, so we're having two events together. So, would you like to move closer?
Already know, we're doing this digital democracy workshop here today to gather more information about like how you feel about your project, how what's the ideas between your project and the government, and what could we possibly suggest the government to do in the future. So for the first part, we're going to cover the current community, the projects we have already interviewed, and what's our project like about to like. And then we'll start having some quick speak up, and I'll give this like a formal introduction to JS.
Hi everyone. Hi. I know it's like disaster, but we do have some interesting findings to share with you after our interview in the region. These research project actually came from the previous Face the Ocean hackathon. So if you remember in Jeju Island, we all discussed about doing the CVTech project, but how to work with the governments and how they can be supportive but at the same time being challenging to your own projects. But as the key stakeholder for almost all the CVTech projects, how to manage the relationship with governments is a crucial question for every project, we think. And after that research and then that consultation at Face the Ocean hackathon, we came back to Taiwan, and then now Taiwanese government actually trying to have official policy to support CVTech projects. But they don't know what to do, or they are not sure like what's the best format for the partnership to be formed. That's why we are having these research projects. We are doing interview with at least 8 projects from the region, mostly from Korea, Japan, and Taiwan, trying to understand your experience, your relationship with governments, and if we can, it's not an if, we are now making policy recommendation for the governments, for Taiwan, for Korea, for Japan, what kind of support you should have, what kind of private and public partnership can be helpful for CVTech, but at the same time for digital democracy. We work for Taiwan, Korea, and Japan, right? And how CVTech project can be helpful in the process of developing or provide digital service from the governments. For that goal, we should have a partnership, but what kind of partnership should we have? what kind of good lessons learned from the region, what kind of bad lessons learned. That's why RS and I and Shihao, we have been reaching out to different projects in the region, trying to understand your experience. And we know there are some difficulties, but we are keen to write this report by the end of this year, and then we will publish actually in 8 languages. Yeah, so the Taiwanese government has been really generous in terms of supporting this kind of knowledge sharing. So the report itself will be, the whole report will be in English, in Mandarin, in Chinese, and then we will translate into 8 languages so people can understand what are the lessons learned from the region. So the wishing list we are now making now, the policy recommendation is not only for the government for the region, but it can be useful for all the civic tech projects to initiate their dialogue with their governments, with their stakeholders. That's our goal. But we can only do this with all your support and your engagement. That's why we are having this really disturbing setting for your lunch. But we want to share what we learned and we want to hear what you learned from your own project. Would that be good? Great. Okay. So Poren and I, we will share some research findings and our methodology. And we will share 2 stories from Taiwan today. But we are eager to learn from yours. Okay. Maybe you wanna from this here, yeah.
Okay, so I'll start from initial, like what's the general idea of digital democracy and like how this project was formed. So as you know that like when we're mentioning digital democracy, there's a lot of buzzwords and vibes, but actually when we really dig in, like nobody really define what digital democracy is. So we try to dig in a little bit to the literature, and we know like Audrey or like a lot of the folks here in the civic community is trying to mention this, but finally we find that digital democracy can be understood as a like really big umbrella term. It's like any kind of technology that promotes democracy. It's not binded to like participatory, or like it's not like really enforced. Like it's not like really a formal way. There's no fixed form. As long as you're using the technology to help with the democracy, it could be counted. But how? Like we would ask, like how could we use technology to help democracy? So we're trying to bring civic tech community here because like we know civic tech communities are the ones who know technology, have a really great good understanding of how civic social issues are. So this is why we're when we are mapping or plotting the project, we're trying to use civic tech community to cover or help us to find out what projects are these civic tech communities are doing, and what kind of democracy, what kind of good things, the resilience of democracy can they promote. So we do bring up some of the projects. For example, like for COFAX, maybe it's a promotion of truth, so people could discuss more on more grounded information. That's maybe part of the research, and so that's why we're trying to observe how civic tech projects work. And yeah, so there's 3 main questions we have introduced you a bit. It's how does the civic tech project enhance digital resilience? How do they promote the good stuff? How does the good stuff benefit the development of democracy? And how do they benefit the public services, the government? How do they help the government? And how do they help us? And what kind of this public-private partnership, the collaboration between the private sector, the civic society, and the government to actually contribute, and how do we sustain? Is sometimes it's easy to reach out to the government, but it's not easy to have a long time relationship for the government to continue to understand, for us to continue to push stuff. So how do we make these changes permanent? How do we make these changes longer? What are the possible recommendations to the government to actually make them work? So in this project, we'll try to cover 8 civic tech projects. Probably 4 of them in Taiwan, and probably 2 in Japan and 2 in Korea. And we might develop more if we have more people to talk with us. But that's the current scope. It's we're covering 8 projects. And for the 2 projects, let's ask.
Yeah. So. No worries if you cannot understand us. We have printed out all the text on that whiteboard, if you can see that. So you can go there and read if you have time, and then you can post anything like your comment over there. And of course, we provide the link of our initial findings for you. But now I'm telling you these 2 stories from our research, and then trying to hear your feedback and maybe your experience. So next. So the first question we're trying to provide policy recommendation is that we think it is really important for the governments or stakeholders to understand civic tech community are different than other NGOs. The structure of it, the nature of it, and the participants of it. They are very different than other traditional NGOs. So if you want to work with them, you need to understand them and follow their rules. So I think the most important thing is to understand how they structure and how this structure can be useful or maybe challenging for so-called private-public partnership, and what kind of partnership can be helpful for this kind of structure. That's the first question we're trying to understand. We know in Japan, in South Korea, you have NOFO, you have KOFO Korea, you have KOFO Japan. Many of community structure are very different. So we are keen to learn from your experience and then talk to you. So if there are people from Korea and Japan can share with us, we will talk to you later about your community here. But now we are now introducing what we learned from Taiwan. So you are familiar with GovZero, right? Yes, okay. So we all know it's multi-center, and this is the first good thing and bad thing for the policy recommendation, because for governments, they don't know who to talk to, and they don't even have a legal entity, so you cannot get funding. And you don't get one boss to make the final decision. But what is the good thing is that you have many projects under the framework. So they are dealing with different issues, and it broadens the participants' base and as well as the awareness of digital topics. And it got resilience there, actually, because if one people quit or one project die out, you still have different center in the community. So that's the good thing. So you see one coin and 2 sides, right? So if you are providing support, you are forming partnership with this kind of structure, you need to know who to talk to, and you need to know their legal entity, their status, and you need to know what they are good at. So you actually need to be in the community so that you can form this kind of partnership. This is important, but also challenging for maybe public servants. I don't know in Japan or Korea, but in Taiwan, the public servants, they always work very late. They don't have free time, they don't sleep well. So I'm not sure how much time they can spend in the community. But if they want to form this kind of partnership, they have this kind of understanding of the structure of the community. That's the first point we learned from the interviewees. Secondly, GovZero is volunteer-based, which means I think there's 1 or 2 full-time employee under GovZero with different projects, but actually nobody is earning their salary, or nobody is making their career in the community. 1 coin, 2 sides, right? Good thing is that people are here on mission, and they are passionate about the projects. They have their goal. The other side, they can come and go very easily because most of them, they are volunteer. So you also see this happen, right? So for the policy recommendation, how do you work with volunteers? It's not a traditional NGO. It's not an organization who run for profit. So how do you follow their motivations of these projects and then being supportive for their projects? I think that it's a test for the governments to provide this kind of support to them. So something we learned from the interviewee is that maybe the government should consider a CVTech project as an educational program for the public. So everyone can participate as a volunteer, everyone can join the program, and then the barrier is really low, it's set for everyone, right? So the whole process of running the project or being in the project, being in the community, it's a way for digital literacy, or it's a way, of course, to enhance digital resilience of every individual if they understand like what to search or what tools to be used. Also, what is privacy? All these like little things, I think is crucial for modern life. And only during this kind of process in the community, you can learn from this. So for example, in GovZero, every 2 years we have a summit. You have hundreds of people coming. Maybe you consider it as an educational program for people to learn. And also we have every 2 months the hackathon. So how do you bridge hackathon to different community? How do you expand the limit of knowledge to different community? If you consider volunteer as a way to engage people with knowledge or a skill set and all that, maybe you can find a way to support this kind of community like GovZero. That's the second lesson we learned from the interviewee. Third, hackathon, just like today. One coin, two sides, right? What is the bad thing about hackathon? You don't get to have a good lunch. No. What is the bad thing about hackathon? Maybe it's bad for reporting purpose, because if it's a government project, government program, they need something to be done in the end of the program, right? But hackathon, it should be very open. So there's a conflict of this. But what is the good side of hackathon? Everyone can come. So in the case of GovZero, you do see lots of public servants, they can come. They are not necessarily representing their own government agency. They just bring their questions or their problems from their work or out of their personal interests. And then they can come here and then hear the feedback or knowing the tools or even get someone to work with them for the government agency on certain projects. If it's an official event with limitation, with a concrete framework, maybe it's not too easy for the public servant to step in or even for the private sector. So being open is the good thing and also the bad thing for hackathon if the government is trying to support or to engage with. That's the third thing we learned from the interviewee. So actually, if you want to see all the details about this, you can see on the paper. But in the end, we really think that in general, what we learned from the interviewees, we interviewed like 10 people in Taiwan in the GovZero community. What the policy recommendation for us, like the most important one, is to encourage the governments rethink themselves. They are not a funder. Maybe they are the user of CVTech tools or CVTech projects. You use them and you can share the data or you use the tools and you can already enlarge like the impact of the tool itself. And you also encourage the citizens to participate in CVTech project. If it's an educational program, then in the end, you raise up the awareness or knowledge on digital topics that actually align with your goal of the government agency. So how do you rethink yourself as a user of CVTech tools or even a contributor to the community? We know that's a big challenge for the governments. but we are making a wish, right? So why not being ambitious? So that's the first story we want to share. Second, we want to document and explore the format or the drives for the public-private partnership. We all know there should be something happen that the government can be active, which means sometimes in Taiwan we have sunflower movement and things are moving. And in Japan, unfortunately, sometimes the earthquake or disasters, so the government opening their gates for any kind of participation or data request. So what is the drive for this partnership to happen? We want to know that and want to learn from that. So please come to us to share your experience. What is the drive behind all this possible or previous partnership you had with the governments? We need good lessons, but as well as bad lessons. So please share with us. We have a good lesson, but with a bad ending from Taiwan. So ours is actually in this initiative. We do have an open parliament initiative in the past 4 years. And unfortunately, it's not going anywhere right now because of the result of another round of election. Ronnie is also here. He is also the key participant of this project. So we interview some of the participants of this initiative, understand how they started. It's like miracle because Taiwan is not OGP member, which means it's not necessary for our governments to follow OGP guideline. So why we are doing this, right? And how we are doing this? We are trying to follow the guideline even though we are not a member, and how we make the government to draft the plan and action on it, even though we are not a member. Government, because there's no other external pressure from the international organizations. How to do that? So we did the interview and document all the process, and the good thing about this and bad thing about this. There are lots of learnings from this, so if you're interested, please go and check the paper. One thing we will provide as a policy recommendation is that given the situation in Taiwan, we should encourage the cross-ministry understanding or encouragement on applying OGP guidelines and make it like a very common concept for whole governments. So with every election, things will just continue because that's already in the roots. It will not just stop because of another election or another parties are ruling right now. We know how that can play an important impact in civic tech community. We have learned that from other countries as well. We know in Korea, our friends are suffering from the governments maybe. But how do we stop that? How do we make it happen, but only for once, not only for 4 years, but make it long term? So these are the questions we want to ask and learn from different partnerships you have formed from the government in your region. So once again, please come to us. If you have any good and bad lessons you learn from engaging with governments, please share with us. And we will try to form the policy recommendations in the research paper, so maybe that could be useful for partners in other countries. Yeah, I think that's all from us. How are you feeling? Any questions, please? Or any feedback? Or any other suggestion on question we should ask? Or who we should talk to? I know you are all expert and you have more knowledge than me, so please help us. Please.
Digital democracy. Do the topics you mentioned related to political affairs? For example, like Kovo Sake, it's much more culture oriented or like localization oriented. do that count as like digital democracy, what you mentioned?
Yeah, of course, because you do see lots of policies in Taiwan is supporting the local economy or support the culture movement in different cities. So that kind of project is definitely something the local government will love very much. Of the Ministry of Culture, they will love it, of course. So yeah, please count that. Those are good projects. And I do see the importance of local government. I know in COFO Japan, you have successful example on forming relationship or partnership with local governments. Those are also crucial for us as well. Thank you for the question. Any other?
One thing I could second is like we've observed is like the structure of different communities is like vastly different. Like in Taiwan, like GovZero is like its own. But like in Japan, you have Go for Japan, you have like Go for Sapporo, Go for like different cities. But in Korea, you have like what we see is like a lot of different tech communities, not exactly bind to a city, but there's also Code for Korea. So we really want to know like how these communities like collaborate and how they work, so we could have a better understanding of like what's the difference or like what's the exact meaning of local culture, like that affects the projects.
Please.
Yeah, thank you. I want to share the Code for Japan story later. I feel that in Japan, the city level government and the national level government is different. Maybe the recommendation should be changed by the level of the government.
Yeah, that's a crucial advice. Thank you for this. Yeah, we will collect a lot and then trying to provide different level of action to take or policy recommendation for different stakeholders. But we need to collect a lot, so so then we can do that. So thank you for the advice.
I could also reply to this is like when we're doing open parliament data, not exactly on open parliament. We've seen that for the open parliament itself in the central legislature, it's pretty well. It's following international standards. Although it's like the system is old and wacky, but it's still like trying to open its data. But for the local council, for the local city legislature, for the local, like town legislature, it's really difficult to even find their like records or meeting minutes. So this is also like for different levels of municipality or like city structure, we might need to have different like recommendations. This is like actually a problem.
Please, any other hands? You might hear us say a lot of like understanding, because we really try to understand like different projects. So feel free to share anything with us. Great, so we will be there at that table, and the report is on the whiteboard, so please come to us, and then it will be really helpful to share. And I want to mention that in Taiwan, the Ministry of Digital Affairs are trying two policies to support civic tech, and which is actually open to not only Taiwanese projects. So the first is public code. So they will publish your projects as a public code. So the government can use and everyone can use. They have the platform for that. They can promote your code to other cities, other countries as well. Secondly, is they provide space, like social space, for different projects to be there. I mean, you can use the office, you can having there has your event space, things like that. It's about the incubation of civic tech projects. So they have trying this with two projects already. So if you're interested, just check the website and maybe you can base in Taiwan and run your projects. Thank you again for your time and attention. Thank you so much.
大人の方もぜひ4回目
可以结束了，可以结束了。
等一下，
2点。